You're born inside a rotting tree trunk, deep in the rainforest, where the air is thick with humidity and the sound of insects never stops. Your egg was white and smooth, sitting alone in a shallow depression your mother scraped out with her claws. She didn't build a fancy nest or gather soft materials, just a simple hollow in decaying wood, hidden from the world. When you finally crack through that shell, you're not much to look at. Your eyes are still closed, your body is covered in sparse gray down, and you can barely lift your oversized head. You don't make a sound because making noise in this forest is basically asking to be eaten. Your mother hovers nearby, but she's not like other bird parents. She doesn't fuss over you or bring constant meals. Instead, she sits perfectly still on a nearby branch, looking exactly like a broken piece of wood. Her feathers are mottled brown and gray, her posture is rigid, and her enormous eyes remain completely motionless. To anything walking or flying past, she's just part of the tree. That's the whole point. While you're helpless in that hollow, she's your only protection, and her protection comes from being invisible. The first few days are rough. You're cold, hungry, and completely dependent on her for everything. When she does move, it's only at night. She'll fly off silently, her wings making no sound as she hunts for insects. Her beak is wide and her mouth opens like a cave, perfect for snatching moths and beetles out of the air. When she returns, she regurgitates partially digested insects directly into your mouth. It's not appetizing, but it's what keeps you alive. Your world is darkness and waiting. The hollow you're in feels enormous compared to your tiny body, but it's actually just big enough to hold you. Sometimes you hear things moving outside, rustling leaves, the calls of other birds, the distant roar of howler monkeys. But you never see any of it. Your eyes won't open for another week, and even then, your vision will be blurry and unfocused. For now, you exist in a world of sounds, smells, and the warmth of your mother when she returns to check on you. After about a week, your eyes finally crack open. The world is a hazy blur of brown and green, but at least you can see light filtering through the forest canopy. Your mother looks different than you expected. She's much larger than you imagined, with a massive head and the biggest eyes you've ever seen. When she stares at you, those eyes don't blink. They just watch, unmoving, like two enormous amber marbles. It's unsettling, but it's also comforting. She's watching over you. Your feathers start growing in, but they're not the sleek, colorful plumage you see on other birds. Instead, they're mottled and rough, designed to help you blend in with bark and dead leaves. Even as a chick, you're learning the most important lesson of your life. Survival depends on not being seen. When danger approaches, you freeze completely. Your body goes rigid, your neck stretches upward, and you become a piece of wood. It's instinct, and it's the only reason you're still alive. Feeding becomes more regular as you grow, but it's still unpredictable. Your mother might bring you a feast of moths one night and then disappear for 2 days. You learn to be patient, to conserve energy, and to never waste movement. Other bird chicks might chirp and beg for food, but you stay silent. Sound attracts predators, and predators mean death. The forest is full of things that would love to eat a defenseless chick, and your only defense is being overlooked entirely. As your feathers develop, you notice something strange about your appearance. Your eyes are growing larger, taking up more and more of your head. Your beak is getting wider, and your mouth opens to an almost comical degree. You look nothing like the colorful parrots or toucans you occasionally glimpse through the canopy. You look like something designed by evolution purely for function, not beauty. And that function is clear, blend in and disappear. Your first real test comes when a snake slithers into the area around your tree. It's not huge, but it's big enough to swallow you whole. Your mother is gone, hunting somewhere in the darkness, and you're completely alone. The snake moves slowly, methodically, tasting the air with its forked tongue. It knows there's something alive nearby. It just can't figure out where. You freeze so completely that you stop breathing. Your body becomes a statue, your neck stretched upward, your eyes wide but unblinking. The snake passes within inches of your hollow, its scales scraping against the bark. But it doesn't see you. To the snake, you're just another piece of rotting wood. After what feels like hours, it moves on. Votes. You survived your first real encounter with death. Over the following weeks, you grow stronger and larger, but you never grow bold. Boldness gets you killed in this forest. You learn to recognize the sounds that mean danger, the rustle of leaves that doesn't match the wind, the snap of a twig under something heavy, the sudden silence that falls when a predator is near. When you hear these sounds, you freeze. Every muscle in your body locks into place, and you become part of the tree. Your mother continues her nocturnal hunting routine, but now she's bringing back bigger prey. Beetles the size of your head, moths with wingspans that dwarf your body, and occasionally something even more substantial. You're growing fast, but you're also becoming more aware of just how dangerous your world is. During the day, you watch through your hollow as other creatures move through the forest. Monkeys swing through the branches, their calls echoing through the canopy. Colorful birds flash between the leaves, their bright feathers making them visible from great distances. You wonder how they survive being so noticeable, so obvious. Then you see a hawk dive down and snatch a small parrot out of the air, and you understand. They don't always survive. Your hollow is getting cramped. Your wings are developing, stretching out on either side of your body, and your tail feathers are growing longer each day. Soon, you'll be too big to fit in this rotting depression. But leaving means exposing yourself to the world, and the world is full of things that want to eat you. Your mother seems to sense your growth. She spends more time near the tree now, keeping watch as you approach the size where you'll need to venture outside. The night you first leave your hollow, you don't go far, just to the edge of the depression where you can feel the night air on your face. The forest sounds different from outside your protective cavity, louder, more chaotic, full of movements and calls that you can't identify. Your mother is perched on a branch just above you, still as a statue, but her presence is reassuring. If danger approaches, she'll warn you. If something tries to attack, she'll defend you. But mostly, she'll teach you the most important skill you'll ever learn: how to become invisible. Your first lesson in camouflage happens by accident. A small mammal, something like a mouse but with larger eyes, scurries along the branch toward you. You freeze instinctively, your body going rigid, your neck stretching upward. The mouse runs right past you, so close you can feel its whiskers brush against your feathers. But it doesn't see you. To the mouse, you're just another piece of bark. That's when you realize the power of what you are. You're not fast like a falcon or strong like an eagle. You're something much more valuable. You're invisible. Night after night, you practice this skill. Your mother brings you to different branches, different trees, and teaches you how to position your body to match the wood around you. Your mottled feathers help, but camouflage is more than just color. It's about posture, about stillness, about becoming so motionless that you blend into the background of the forest. You learn to tilt your head at the exact angle that makes your outline disappear against the bark. You discover how to position your wings so they look like broken branches. Most importantly, you master the art of absolute stillness. not just staying in one place, but becoming so motionless that you might as well be dead wood. The forest tests you constantly. Monkeys leap through the branches around you, their hands grabbing at anything that looks like it might be food. Snakes slither along the same branches where you perch, their bodies wrapping around the wood as they hunt for prey. Hawks and eagles soar overhead, their keen eyes scanning for any movement below, but they don't see you. None of them do. You've mastered the first and most crucial skill of being a Potoo, the ability to hide in plain sight. Your diet is expanding too. Your mother still brings you food, but now she's teaching you to hunt for yourself. Moths are your specialty. They flutter through the night air, drawn to sources of light, and your enormous mouth makes catching them surprisingly easy. You don't chase them like other birds might. Instead, you wait. You position yourself on a branch where moths are likely to pass, open your mouth wide, and let them fly directly into it. Your technique is less about speed and more about patience and positioning. Beetles are trickier. They're heavier, more substantial, and they don't fly in predictable patterns. But they're also more nutritious, and a single large beetle can keep you satisfied for hours. You learn to spot them crawling along branches in the darkness, their hard shells glinting in whatever moonlight filters through the canopy. When one gets within range, you strike fast, your wide beak snapping shut around its body before it can react. The forest is starting to feel less like a dangerous maze and more like home. You know which branches are sturdy enough to support your weight, which hollow logs provide the best shelter, and where the hunting is most productive. Your camouflage is becoming second nature. You don't have to think about freezing anymore. Your body does it automatically whenever danger approaches. You're learning to read the forest's moods, to understand the subtle changes in sound and movement that signal different types of threats. But you're not independent yet. Your mother is still your lifeline, your teacher, and your protector. She shows you where to find the best hunting spots, how to position yourself for maximum camouflage, and most importantly, how to distinguish between real threats and false alarms. The forest is full of sounds that can send you into freeze mode unnecessarily, and learning to filter out the harmless noises from the dangerous ones is a skill that takes time to develop. Your world is expanding, but slowly. Each night, you venture a little further from your birth tree, exploring new branches and testing your camouflage skills in different environments. Some nights, you discover trees with different bark patterns that require subtle adjustments to your posture. Other nights, you find branches that offer better hunting opportunities, but also expose you to different types of predators. Every experience teaches you something new about survival in this complex, dangerous, beautiful forest. Your mother's teachings become more demanding as you grow. Instead, she expects you to follow longer, brings food directly to you, her on hunting expeditions. These aren't gentle learning sessions. They're survival tests. She'll perch on a branch 20 feet away and wait. If you can't figure out how to get there without being spotted by the nocturnal predators that patrol this forest, you don't eat. The first few attempts are disasters. You move too quickly, your wings rustle too loudly, and you break the cardinal rule of Potoo existence. You get noticed. A margai, one of those spotted cats that hunt in the trees, spots your clumsy movement on your third night of training. It's smaller than a jaguar, but perfectly adapted for life in the canopy, with rotating ankles that let it climb down trees head first. When it locks onto you, those yellow eyes reflect the moonlight like tiny suns. Your mother doesn't intervene. This is your test. You freeze mid-step, 1 foot raised, your body twisted at an awkward angle. The margai stares directly at you, its head tilting as it tries to figure out what you are. You don't breathe, you don't blink. You become a broken branch caught in an impossible position. Minutes pass. The Margot's attention wavers. A real branch doesn't stay perfectly still for this long. There should be some sway, some natural movement with the wind, but you're not moving at all, and that confuses its predator instincts. Finally, it loses interest and pads away through the branches, its searing into the spotted coat disdappled shadows. You hold your position for another 10 minutes before your mother gives a barely audible call that means it's safe to move. You nearly collapse from the strain of maintaining that awkward pose, but you pass the test. Hunting becomes your obsession, not just because you're hungry, but because successful hunting means you're truly mastering the art of being a Potoo. Your technique develops over weeks of trial and error. You learn that the best hunting spots are near forest clearings where insects gather around flowering plants. The gaps in the canopy let in just enough moonlight to silhouette flying prey against the sky, making them easier to track and catch. Your first successful solo hunt happens on a humid night when the air is thick with the scent of blooming orchids. You position yourself on a dead branch that extends over a small clearing, your body perfectly aligned with the wood grain. Moths begin their nightly dance around the flowers below, their erratic flight patterns creating opportunities. You wait. Patience is everything. A large brown moth spirals upward, following some invisible scent trail. It passes within striking distance, but you don't move. Too risky. Another moth follows, this one larger, its wings catching the faint light. Still too far, then the perfect target appears. A massive moth with wingspan that stretches nearly 6 inches across. It's flying directly toward your perch, drawn by something in the dead wood, probably beetle larvae. You open your mouth wide, so wide that your jaw unhinges slightly, creating a cavern that could swallow prey twice the size of this moth. The moth flies straight in. Your beak snaps shut with a soft click, and suddenly you're holding your first independent meal. The satisfaction is overwhelming. You're no longer just surviving, you're thriving. Your mother notices the change in your abilities. She starts leaving you alone for longer periods, sometimes disappearing for entire nights. At first, this terrifies you. The forest feels enormous and hostile without her protective presence. But gradually, you realize that her absence is another test. You're learning to trust your own instincts, to read the forest's dangers without her guidance. When she returns, she doesn't check on you immediately. Instead, she perches nearby and watches, evaluating your behavior, your positioning, your camouflage technique. The night you truly graduate from her care arrives without warning. You wake up in your usual roosting spot, a shallow depression in the bark of an old cecropia tree, and she's gone, not hunting gone, gone. Her scent is fading, and there are no fresh marks from her claws on the surrounding branches. You call out softly, using the low-frequency contact call she taught you, but there's no response. You're alone. Panic sets in first. Without her, you feel exposed and vulnerable. Every sound becomes a potential threat. The normal chorus of night insects seems louder, more chaotic. Tree branches creak in ways that sound like approaching footsteps. Your eyes, now fully developed and enormous, scan constantly for movement. But as the night progresses, you realize something important. You're handling this. Your camouflage is perfect, your positioning is instinctive, and your hunting skills are sharp enough to keep you fed. The forest that once seemed impossibly dangerous is now your territory. You know every branch, every hollow, every hunting ground within a half-mile radius of your birth tree. You've memorized the patrol routes of the predators that share your space. The margay hunts primarily in the upper canopy around midnight. The fer-de-lance snake is most active on the forest floor just after sunset. The spectacled owl prefers the middle canopy layers and hunts by sound rather than sight. Knowing their patterns helps you avoid them entirely. Your diet expands beyond moths and beetles. You discover that small frogs make excellent meals, especially the tiny ones that call from the leaf litter. They're not as easy to catch as flying insects, but they're more nutritious and easier to swallow. Tree frogs are particularly challenging because they can leap away quickly, but you develop a technique for catching them. You wait near the water-filled cavities in bromeliad plants where they come to drink and breed. When a frog extends its neck to call, you strike, your wide beak closing around its entire head before it can react. Lizards become another food source, though they require different hunting strategies. Geckos are active at night, hunting insects on tree trunks, and their movements are predictable enough that you can intercept them. Anoles are trickier because they're faster and more alert, but they also tend to freeze when they sense danger, giving you opportunities to grab them during their own camouflage attempts. Your growing independence brings new challenges. Other Potoos live in this forest, and you're starting to encounter them. Adult males are territorial, and they don't appreciate young birds hunting in their established territories. Your first confrontation happens near a particularly productive hunting spot, where a dead tree attracts massive numbers of insects. You've been successfully feeding there for several nights when a larger Potoo appears on a nearby branch. He doesn't attack immediately. Instead, he performs a threat display that's both subtle and terrifying. His body elongates, stretching upward until he looks like a broken tree trunk reaching toward the sky. His neck extends to impossible lengths, and his enormous eyes fix on you with unblinking intensity. His mouth opens slightly, revealing the pink interior and his impressive gape. The message is clear. This is his territory, and you need to leave. You're not ready to fight an adult male, so you retreat. But the encounter teaches you something valuable about Potoo social dynamics. Territory matters. The best hunting spots are claimed by the strongest birds, and younger or weaker individuals have to make do with marginal areas. You start exploring further from your birth territory, looking for unclaimed hunting grounds where you can feed without conflict. The search takes you deeper into the forest than you've ever ventured. You discover areas where the canopy is so thick that almost no light reaches the forest floor. Here, different insects thrive, larger beetles, more diverse moth species, and creatures you've never seen before. A massive rhinoceros beetle, its horn gleaming in the faint light, crawls along a branch just within striking distance. You've never tried to eat something this large, but you're hungry and curious. The attack requires precise timing. The beetle is heavily armored and surprisingly strong, but it's also slow. You wait until it's positioned perfectly, then strike with your full body weight behind the blow. Your beak closes around the beetle's thorax, avoiding the dangerous horn. The beetle struggles violently, its powerful legs scratching at your face, but you hold firm. After several minutes of wrestling, the beetle's movements slow and finally stop. You've caught your largest prey yet. Swallowing the beetle takes considerable effort. Your throat stretches to accommodate its bulk, and you have to work it down slowly to avoid choking. But the meal is incredibly satisfying. A single large beetle like this can sustain you for 2 or 3 days, giving you time to explore new areas without the constant pressure of hunting. Your exploration reveals the complex geography of your forest home. There are areas dominated by different tree species, each creating unique microenvironments. The fig trees attract different insects than the cecropia trees. The palm groves have their own specialized fauna. Some areas are consistently more productive for hunting, while others offer better camouflage opportunities. You're learning to read the forest like a map, understanding how different factors, rainfall, moon phases, flowering cycles, affect prey availability. The rainy season brings new challenges and opportunities. Heavy rainfall makes flying insects scarce, but it also drives ground dwelling prey up into the trees seeking shelter. Frogs become more abundant as temporary pools form in tree hollows and bromeliad plants. The increased humidity makes your feathers feel heavier, but it also provides better cover as the constant sound of raindrops masks any noise you might make while moving between perches. During one particularly intense storm, you discover something remarkable about your species' weather adaptation. As rain pounds the forest canopy, you position yourself in a shallow bark crevice and let the water run off your perfectly angled feathers. Your posture naturally channels the water away from your body while maintaining your camouflage. You can wait out even the heaviest downpours without getting soaked, staying warm and dry, while other forest creatures struggle with the elements. Your confidence grows with each successful hunt, each predator avoided, each night survived on your own. The skills your mother taught you have become second nature. Camouflage isn't something you think about anymore. It's an automatic response to any perceived threat. Your body knows exactly how to position itself to blend with different types of bark, how to angle your head to break up your outline, how to remain motionless for hours without cramping or losing focus. But independence also means facing the forest's dangers without backup. You have close calls that test every survival skill you've learned. A tara, a large weasel-like predator, spends an entire night hunting in your territory. These animals are incredibly persistent and have excellent night vision. You spend 8 hours frozen in position as it searches the trees around you, coming within feet of your roost multiple times. By dawn, your muscles are screaming from holding the same pose all night, but you remain undetected. Another night, an ocelot picks up your scent trail and follows it through the trees. Unlike the tara, the ocelot is primarily a ground hunter, but it's perfectly capable of climbing when pursuing prey. You hear it moving through the undergrowth below, occasionally stopping to sniff at trees where you've perched recently. The cat's persistence is unnerving. It spends hours tracking your movements, getting closer to your current position with each circuit through the area. Salvation comes from an unexpected source. A troop of howler monkeys begins their pre-dawn territorial calls in the canopy directly above you. Their roars are deafening, drowning out any sound you might accidentally make, and their movement through the branches creates enough distraction to break the ocelot's concentration. The cat loses your scent trail in the chaos and eventually wanders off to hunt easier prey. You remain frozen until well after sunrise, only relaxing when you're certain the danger has passed. These encounters teach you that survival isn't just about individual skills, it's about understanding the entire ecosystem around you. The howler monkeys that saved you from the ocelot also create hunting opportunities when their feeding activities knock insects out of the trees. Army ant columns marching across the forest floor drive countless small creatures up into the branches where you can catch them. Even the presence of other predators can work in your favor, as their hunting activities disturb prey animals and make them easier targets. Your territory gradually expands as you grow stronger and more confident. You're no longer confined to the immediate area around your birth tree. Instead, You patrol a circuit of several square miles, moving between different hunting grounds based on seasonal patterns and prey availability. Some nights, you hunt near the forest edge where agricultural clearing meets wilderness. The disturbed habitat attracts different insects, and the increased light makes hunting easier. Other nights, you venture deep into primary forest, where the canopy is so thick that noon feels like twilight. The forest edge brings new dangers, but also new opportunities. Humans occasionally pass through these areas, and their presence dramatically alters the behavior of forest animals. Most creatures flee when humans approach, but you've learned that staying perfectly still makes you invisible to human eyes too. Several times, people have walked directly beneath your perch without noticing you. Their poor night vision and tendency to make noise as they move makes them easy to avoid, but their unpredictable behavior means you can never fully relax when they're nearby. Agricultural areas also attract barn owls and other raptors that don't normally hunt in deep forest. These birds are serious threats because they're specifically adapted to hunt in open areas and have excellent vision. You've had several close encounters with barn owls that required split-second timing to avoid. Their silent flight makes them nearly impossible to hear coming, and their hunting style involves sudden, devastating strikes from above. Your only defense is perfect camouflage and the hope that they mistake you for dead wood. But the forest edge also provides access to fruit trees that attract massive numbers of insects. Mango trees in particular become feeding bonanzas during flowering season. The sweet nectar draws moths, beetles, and other flying insects in concentrations you never see in the deep forest. A single night of hunting near a flowering mango tree can provide more food than a week of normal foraging. The challenge is timing your visits to avoid human activity while maximizing insect availability. Your hunting technique continues to evolve as you encounter new types of prey. Large katydids become a specialty because they're abundant, nutritious, and relatively easy to catch once you understand their behavior. They're most active during the first few hours after sunset, when they emerge from their daytime hiding spots to feed and mate. Their calls help you locate them, and their tendency to freeze when threatened makes them perfect targets for your ambush style of hunting. Cicadas present a different challenge entirely. These insects are massive, loud, and completely focused on reproduction during their brief adult lives. When they emerge en masse every few years, the forest becomes a cacophony of their mating calls. The sound is so intense it can be heard for miles, and it attracts every insect-eating creature in the forest. Competition for cicadas is fierce, but the rewards are enormous. A single large cicada provides as much nutrition as a dozen smaller insects. Your first cicada hunt requires careful planning and flawless execution. The insects cling to tree trunks while calling, their bodies vibrating so intensely that they're difficult to grab cleanly. You position yourself on a trunk, known for heavy cicada activity, and wait for the perfect target. When a particularly large male begins calling just within reach, you strike with your full body weight, pinning it against the bark before it can fly away. The cicada's powerful legs scratch at your face, but you maintain your grip until its struggles cease. The complexity of your diet reflects your growing mastery of the forest environment. You're no longer just catching whatever happens to fly past your perch. Instead, you're actively seeking out specific types of prey based on seasonal availability, nutritional needs, and hunting opportunities. Small mammals occasionally join your menu when the opportunity arises. Young opossums, small rodents, and even juvenile bats become targets when they venture too close to your territory. Capturing a bat requires extraordinary timing and precision. These animals are built for agility in three-dimensional space, with echolocation that should make them nearly impossible to ambush. But you discover that bats have blind spots, particularly when they're focused on catching insects of their own. By positioning yourself near known bat feeding areas and timing your strikes to coincide with their hunting dives, you can occasionally snatch one out of the air. The technique is risky because missing means alerting every bat in the area to your presence, but success provides a substantial meal. Your growing reputation as an effective predator begins to influence the behavior of other forest creatures. Animals that previously ignored your presence now give your territory a wider berth. Small birds alter their flight paths to avoid your hunting perches. Even insects seem to sense danger in areas where you've been successful, becoming more cautious and alert. This creates a feedback loop where your hunting pressure actually makes hunting more difficult over time, forcing you to constantly adapt your techniques and seek out new territories. The psychological aspect of hunting becomes increasingly important as prey animals learn to recognize you as a threat. Your perfect camouflage only works if animals believe you're actually a piece of wood. But if too many creatures in an area have seen you move or attack, they start treating every suspicious branch as a potential predator. You learn to rotate between different hunting grounds, allowing areas to cool off after periods of intensive hunting. This strategy requires maintaining a much larger territory than you initially planned, but it keeps your success rate high. Seasonal changes bring dramatic shifts in prey availability and hunting strategies. During the dry season, when many insects become scarce, you rely more heavily on frogs and small vertebrates. The reduced water sources concentrate these animals around remaining pools and streams, making them easier to locate and catch. You develop techniques for hunting different species of frogs based on their specific behaviors and habitat preferences. Tree frogs that live in bromeliad plants require a different approach than ground-dwelling species. The arboreal species are more alert and agile, but they're also more predictable in their movements. You learn to position yourself near known breeding sites and wait for males to begin calling. Their loud vocalizations mask any small sounds you might make while adjusting your position for a strike. Ground frogs are less agile, but more difficult to access from your arboreal lifestyle. You occasionally descend to lower branches or even the forest floor when hunting these animals, but such excursions are risky because they take you out of your natural element. Ground level means exposure to different predators and less effective camouflage options. These hunts require careful planning and quick execution to minimize your time in vulnerable positions. Your relationship with the forest deepens as you spend more time in solitary exploration. You begin to understand subtle patterns that escaped your notice as a dependent juvenile. The forest has rhythms that extend far beyond simple day and night cycles. Lunar phases affect insect activity levels. Weather patterns influence prey distribution. Even the feeding schedules of large mammals create ripple effects throughout the ecosystem that impact your hunting opportunities. Full moon nights present unique challenges and opportunities. The increased illumination makes your camouflage less effective because shadows are sharper and details are more visible. But the extra light also makes insects easier to spot and track. Many moths are more active during bright nights, creating feeding opportunities that don't exist during darker periods. You learn to adjust your hunting style for different light conditions, sometimes relying more heavily on perfect stillness during bright nights when movement would be too conspicuous. New moon periods require different tactics entirely. The near total darkness makes visual hunting extremely difficult, but it also provides better camouflage opportunities. You can move between perches with less risk of detection, allowing you to position yourself closer to prey animals. Sound becomes more important during these dark nights, as you learn to locate prey by their movements, calls, and feeding sounds rather than visual cues. Your territorial awareness expands to include the schedules and preferences of competing predators. The forest supports multiple species that hunt similar prey, and avoiding direct competition becomes crucial for maintaining adequate food supplies. Bats dominate certain insect populations during their peak activity hours. Spiders control different prey categories based on their web locations and hunting styles. Even other potoos in distant territories influence prey availability through their hunting pressure. Understanding these competitive relationships helps you identify underexploited resources and timing opportunities. Some insects are most vulnerable during brief windows when their primary predators are inactive or absent. Certain prey species concentrate in specific microhabitats that other predators can't access effectively. Your unique combination of excellent camouflage, precise timing, and aerial agility gives you advantages in particular hunting scenarios that other forest predators can't match. The rainy season transforms your entire hunting strategy as the forest explodes with new life. Temporary pools create breeding opportunities for countless amphibians, filling the night air with a chorus of different frog calls. Each species has distinct vocal patterns, habitat preferences, and activity schedules. You learn to identify promising hunting areas by the mix of frog calls emanating from different locations. Heavy rainfall also drives terrestrial arthropods up into the trees, creating unusual hunting opportunities. Ground-dwelling beetles, millipedes, and other invertebrates seek shelter in bark crevices and hollow branches where you can more easily access them. Some of these creatures are unfamiliar prey species that you encounter only during extreme weather events, requiring you to experiment with new capture and handling techniques. The increased humidity affects your own physiology as well as that of your prey. Your feathers become heavier when saturated with moisture, making flight more energy intensive. But the constant background noise of rainfall provides excellent acoustic camouflage, allowing you to move more freely between hunting positions. You develop specialized techniques for hunting during heavy downpours, learning to use the weather to your advantage rather than simply enduring it. Your first deaths with the Year of Independence conclude return of dry season conditions. The forest gradually transforms as water sources disappear and many animals begin seasonal migrations or dormancy periods. Your territory, which seemed vast during the abundance of rainy season, now requires more intensive management to provide adequate food supplies. You're forced to hunt more efficiently and waste less energy on unsuccessful attempts. The transition between seasons tests every survival skill you've developed over the past year. Competition for resources intensifies as prey becomes scarcer and more concentrated around remaining water sources. You encounter other potoos more frequently as their territories overlap around productive hunting areas. These meetings are tense affairs that could escalate into serious conflicts if not handled carefully. Your growing size and experience give you confidence in territorial disputes, but you're still not ready to challenge fully mature adults. Instead, you focus on finding marginal areas that older birds consider unworthy of defense. These locations might not provide the richest hunting opportunities, but they offer safety from aggressive competitors while you continue developing your skills and physical capabilities. The dry season also brings your first serious illness. Something you ate, possibly a contaminated insect or spoiled frog, triggers severe digestive distress that leaves you weakened and vulnerable. For several days, you can barely maintain your perch, let alone hunt effectively. The experience teaches you important lessons about prey selection and the risks of eating unfamiliar food items. Recovery takes over a week, during which you lose significant body weight and muscle mass. The illness forces you to reevaluate your hunting strategies and risk management approaches. You become more selective about prey quality and more cautious about trying new food sources. The experience also demonstrates the importance of maintaining multiple hunting grounds and food caches. Having backup resources available during periods of illness or injury could mean the difference between survival and death in this unforgiving environment. Your second year of independence begins with a newfound appreciation for the complexity and danger of forest life. You're no longer the naive juvenile who left your mother's protection, but you're also not yet the mature adult you'll eventually become. The forest continues to test you with new challenges, unexpected encounters, and seasonal variations that require constant adaptation and learning. The forest changes you in ways you don't immediately recognize. Your body is getting larger, more powerful, but also more demanding. The meals that once satisfied you for days now barely last through a single night. Your metabolism is ramping up, preparing for something you don't understand yet. The urge to hunt becomes more intense, more focused. You're not just feeding anymore, you're building reserves for whatever comes next. Your second year brings encounters with creatures you've only glimpsed before. A three-toed sloth moves through your territory with agonizing slowness, its body covered in algae that makes it look like a moving tree branch. You watch it for hours, fascinated by another master of camouflage, though its technique is completely different from yours. Where you rely on perfect stillness, the sloth uses deliberate, almost imperceptible movement that mimics swaying vegetation. The sloth's presence attracts clouds of moths that feed on the algae growing in its fur. This creates an unexpected hunting bonanza that lasts for several nights as the sloth passes through your area. You position yourself along its predicted path, waiting for the moths to spiral away from their mobile host. Some of these moths are species you've never encountered before, with unusual flight patterns that require adjustments to your hunting technique. A jaguar appears in your territory one night, its spotted coat barely visible as it moves through the shadows. This is the apex predator of your forest, capable of killing anything it can catch. You freeze so completely that you stop your heart for several beats, letting your body temperature drop to match the surrounding wood. The jaguar passes directly beneath your perch, so close you can smell its musky scent and hear the soft pad of its enormous paws on the forest floor. The encounter lasts less than 5 minutes, but it changes your understanding of the forest hierarchy. You thought you had mastered this environment, but the jaguar's presence reminds you that you're still prey to something much more powerful and dangerous. Its hunting methods are completely different from the smaller predators you've learned to avoid. Where an ocelot or margay might spend hours tracking your scent, a jaguar could simply appear without warning and end your life in a single bite. Your hunting evolves to accommodate larger prey as your size increases. Young iguanas become targets when they venture into the canopy to feed on fresh leaves and flowers. These reptiles are significantly larger than anything you've attempted before, with powerful jaws and sharp claws that can inflict serious damage. Your first iguana hunt is a disaster. You misjudge the animal's speed and strength and it escapes after scratching deep gouges across your face. The wounds take weeks to heal, leaving permanent scars that actually improve your camouflage by breaking up the smooth lines of your facial features. The experience teaches you that larger prey requires different tactics. You can't rely on a single decisive strike. Instead, you need to immobilize dangerous prey quickly before it can fight back effectively. Your technique improves through painful trial and error. You learn to target the base of an iguana's skull, where a precise bite can sever the spinal cord and prevent retaliation. The positioning required for this attack means getting much closer to your prey before striking, increasing your risk of detection. Several attempts fail when iguanas spot you at the last moment and flee before you can attack. Success finally comes when you ambush a juvenile iguana that's feeding on fig fruits in the early morning hours. The reptile is completely focused on the sweet fruit, providing the perfect opportunity for a close approach. Your strike is clean and precise, severing the spinal cord instantly. The iguana's body goes limp, but its powerful jaw continues snapping reflexively for several minutes. You wait until all movement stops before beginning the lengthy process of swallowing your largest meal yet. The iguana provides enough nutrition to sustain you for over a week, but consuming it presents new challenges. Your throat stretches to accommodate the reptile's bulk, and you have to reposition it several times to work it down properly. The process takes nearly an hour and leaves you completely vulnerable during the entire ordeal, ifless to defend yourself. Your success a predator had approached during that time, you would have been help with iguana hunting, opens up new possibilities, but also increases your risk profile significantly. Larger prey means longer handling times and greater exposure to danger. You begin scouting for more secure feeding locations where you can consume large meals without interruption. Hollow trees become preferred dining rooms, but finding cavities large enough to accommodate both yourself and substantial prey requires extensive exploration. The forest reveals new secrets as you venture into previously unexplored areas. Deep ravines cut through the landscape, creating microclimates with different temperature and humidity conditions. These areas support unique insect communities that don't exist in the main forest canopy. Some ravines remain cool and moist even during the dry season, providing refuge for amphibians and creating hunting opportunities when other areas become barren. Exploring these ravines requires descending much closer to ground level than you're comfortable with, but the rewards justify the risks. One particularly productive ravine contains a small stream that attracts incredible diversity of prey animals. Frogs gather to breed in the quiet pools, insects come to drink and lay eggs, and even small mammals visit regularly for water. You establish a hunting circuit that includes this location during your nightly patrols. The stream also provides your first encounter with fish as potential prey. Small characins dart through the shallow water, their silver scales flashing in the filtered moonlight. Catching fish requires entirely new hunting techniques that you develop through observation and experimentation. Your first attempts are clumsy failures, but eventually you learn to time your strikes with the fish's predictable movement patterns. Wading into shallow water feels unnatural and dangerous for a bird adapted to arboreal life. Your feet aren't designed for walking on slippery rocks, and the water makes your feathers heavy and awkward. But the fishing technique you develop proves valuable during dry season when terrestrial prey becomes scarce. A single night of successful fishing can provide protein equivalent to several nights of insect hunting. Your territory now encompasses diverse habitats that require different hunting strategies and seasonal timing. The main canopy provides consistent insect hunting throughout most of the year. The forest edge offers seasonal bonanzas when agricultural crops flower or fruit. The ravine system provides dry season refuges when other areas become unproductive. Managing this complex territory requires careful planning and energy conservation. Seasonal migrations of insects and other prey animals create temporary opportunities that you learn to anticipate and exploit. Army ant colonies march through your territory on predictable schedules, driving countless small creatures ahead of their advancing columns. You position yourself along known ant highways during migration periods, catching the displaced insects and arthropods that flee the approaching swarm. Butterfly migrations provide spectacular but brief hunting opportunities. Certain species gather in massive numbers before undertaking long-distance flights to distant breeding areas. These aggregations last only a few days, but offer incredibly rich feeding while they persist. The butterfly's tendency to cluster in specific locations makes them easy targets, though their daytime activity patterns require adjustments to your normally nocturnal hunting schedule. Your growing expertise as a predator begins attracting attention from other forest inhabitants. Some animals actively avoid areas where you hunt regularly, altering their behavior patterns to reduce encounter risks. Others seem to benefit from your presence, following behind to scavenge scraps from your meals or catching prey animals that you've disturbed but failed to capture. A small wren begins appearing near your favorite hunting perches, apparently feeding on insects that your presence drives from hiding places. The bird maintains a respectful distance, but clearly benefits from your hunting activities. This relationship puzzles you at first, but you gradually realize that many forest interactions involve these kinds of indirect partnerships where different species benefit from each other's activities without direct cooperation. Your third year begins with physical changes that signal approaching maturity. Your voice deepens, developing the haunting call that will eventually define your adult territory. Your eyes, already enormous, seem to grow even larger and more sensitive to subtle light variations. Your wingspan increases dramatically, giving you greater speed and maneuverability during hunting flights. These physical changes coincide with behavioral shifts that you don't fully understand yet. You spend more time calling from prominent perches, advertising your presence to the surrounding forest. The calls serve multiple purposes: establishing territorial boundaries, communicating with potential mates, and warning competitors away from your hunting grounds. Your vocal repertoire expands to include different calls for different situations. Territory becomes increasingly important as you mature. The casual wandering of your juvenile years gives way to more structured patrol routes and defensive behaviors. When another young Potoo appears in your core hunting area, you don't retreat as you would have done previously. Instead, you engage in a territorial display that involves stretching your neck to impossible lengths, opening your mouth to reveal its cavernous interior, and maintaining unblinking eye contact until the intruder withdraws. Your first serious territorial conflict occurs when an adult female establishes a hunting territory that overlaps with your own. She's larger and more experienced, but you're younger and more agile. The confrontation begins with vocal exchanges that escalate over several nights. Neither of you wants to risk physical combat, but neither is willing to abandon valuable hunting grounds. The standoff resolves when you discover that the female's territory actually complements your own rather than competing with it. She prefers different hunting techniques and prey species, focusing on larger vertebrates while you specialize in insects and smaller animals. Her presence actually benefits you by driving disturbed prey toward your hunting areas. An uneasy coexistence develops that gradually becomes more comfortable as you learn to coordinate your activities. This relationship teaches you important lessons about territorial dynamics and resource sharing. The forest is complex enough to support multiple predators in the same area if they exploit different ecological niches. Competition isn't always zero-sum. Sometimes different hunting styles and preferences can create mutually beneficial arrangements. Your fourth year brings the most dramatic changes yet. Hormonal shifts trigger new behaviors and instincts that you don't fully understand but feel compelled to follow. Your calls become more frequent and elaborate, developing into complex songs that carry for miles through the forest. These vocalizations serve as advertisements of your fitness and availability to potential mates. The breeding season transforms your priorities completely. Hunting becomes secondary to the urgent need to establish and defend a high-quality territory that will attract a female. You expand your boundaries aggressively, challenging other males for control of the best hunting areas and nesting sites. These confrontations are more intense than previous territorial disputes, with real risks of injury or death. Your first serious fight occurs when a mature male invades your territory during peak breeding season. He's older and heavier, with scars that indicate extensive combat experience. The battle begins with threat displays and escalates to physical contact when neither bird backs down. You use your superior agility to avoid his powerful strikes while landing quick hits with your sharp claws. The fight lasts over an hour, with both birds suffering injuries. Your opponent's experience shows in his tactical approach, but your youth gives you better stamina and recovery speed. Eventually, exhaustion forces a stalemate. Neither bird wins decisively, but your willingness to fight convinces the intruder that your territory isn't worth the continued effort required to claim it. Victory brings new responsibilities and challenges. Maintaining a breeding territory requires constant vigilance and regular patrol activities that consume enormous amounts of energy. Your hunting efficiency must improve dramatically to support both territorial defense and the physical demands of courtship displays. The pressure forces you to master advanced hunting techniques and exploit every available food source. Your territory now includes prime nesting sites that must be evaluated and prepared for potential breeding attempts. Suitable nest locations are surprisingly rare, requiring specific combinations of shelter, camouflage, and accessibility that few forest sites provide. You spend weeks examining potential nest trees, testing the security and suitability of various cavities and platforms. The ideal nest site balances multiple competing requirements. It must be well hidden from predators, but accessible for food delivery during chick rearing. The surrounding area should provide rich hunting opportunities, but also escape routes if threats appear. The structure itself must be large enough to accommodate eggs and growing chicks while providing adequate protection from weather and predators. Your search reveals the complexity of successful reproduction in this environment. Many seemingly suitable sites fail detailed inspection due to subtle problems that could prove fatal during the vulnerable nesting period. A cavity might be too deep for easy access or too shallow for adequate protection. A platform might be too exposed to weather or too hidden from escape routes. Eventually, you identify several potential nest sites within your territory and begin preparing them for possible use. This preparation involves clearing debris, testing structural integrity, and establishing nearby perches for guard duty and food delivery. The work is exhausting but necessary for successful breeding when the opportunity finally arrives. Your calls become more sophisticated as breeding season progresses, developing into complex songs that convey information about your territory quality, physical condition, and genetic fitness. These vocalizations require enormous energy expenditure, but are essential for attracting a high quality mate. You spend hours each night calling from prominent perches, advertising your availability to females throughout the forest. The response to your calling gradually builds as females begin evaluating potential mates and territories. Distant calls answer your songs, indicating that females are present in the area and potentially interested. These vocal exchanges become increasingly complex as the breeding season intensifies, with subtle variations in timing, pitch, and duration conveying different messages. Your first real courtship opportunity arrives when a female appears at the edge of your territory. She's cautious and evaluative, spending several nights observing your behavior and territory quality before making any commitment. You perform elaborate displays designed to demonstrate your fitness and the richness of your hunting grounds. The courtship process is lengthy and complex, involving multiple stages of evaluation and acceptance. The female must be convinced not only of your genetic quality, but also of your ability to provide adequate territory and resources for successful reproduction. She tests your hunting skills by observing your technique and success rates during normal foraging activities. Your territory undergoes intensive scrutiny as the female evaluates its suitability for raising offspring. She examines potential nest sites, hunting areas, escape routes, and predator risks with remarkable thoroughness. Areas that you considered perfectly adequate reveal subtle deficiencies when subjected to her expert evaluation. The female's standards are impossibly high, reflecting the enormous investment required for successful reproduction. A single breeding attempt represents months of intensive effort and extreme vulnerability for both parents and offspring. Choosing the wrong mate or territory could result in complete reproductive failure and wasted breeding opportunities. Your courtship displays become increasingly elaborate as you compete for the female's attention. These performances require perfect coordination of vocalizations, posturing, and flight maneuvers that showcase your physical capabilities and genetic quality. The energy expenditure is enormous, leaving you exhausted but driven to continue by overwhelming biological imperatives. The female's evaluation process continues for weeks, testing every aspect of your fitness and territory quality. She observes your hunting success, territorial defense capabilities, nest site selection, and responses to various threats and challenges. Any sign of weakness or inadequacy could result in immediate rejection and the loss of your only breeding opportunity for the year. Competition intensifies as other males become aware of the female's presence and begin their own courtship attempts. You must defend your territory against increasingly aggressive intrusions while simultaneously courting the female and maintaining the hunting success necessary to demonstrate your fitness. The pressure is relentless and exhausting. Your rival males employ various strategies to undermine your courtship efforts. Some attempt direct territorial challenges designed to demonstrate your weakness in front of the female. Others try to lure the female away from your territory by offering alternative nesting sites and hunting areas. A few resort to harassment tactics intended to disrupt your displays and exhaust your energy reserves. The competition forces you to elevate every aspect of your performance beyond previous levels. Your hunting becomes more spectacular and efficient. Your territorial defense becomes more aggressive and decisive. Your courtship displays reach new heights of complexity and energy expenditure. The sustained effort pushes your body to its absolute limits. The female's decision-making process remains mysterious and unpredictable. She continues her evaluation activities without giving clear signals about her preferences or intentions. The uncertainty is maddening, but you have no choice except to continue your courtship efforts while hoping that your territory and performance will eventually meet her exacting standards. Your fifth year arrives with a transformation that catches you completely off guard. The female finally accepts your courtship after months of evaluation, but her acceptance comes with immediate and overwhelming responsibilities. She chooses one of your prepared nest sites, a shallow depression in the rotting heartwood of a massive strangler fig. The location is perfect, hidden from above by thick canopy, protected from weather by overhanging bark, and positioned near your most productive hunting grounds. The mating process is brief but significant. Within days, she lays a single white egg in the depression you've both carefully lined with soft moss and small feathers. The egg is surprisingly large relative to her body size, representing an enormous investment of energy and nutrients. She settles onto it immediately, beginning the incubation period that will consume the next month of both your lives. Your role shifts dramatically from territorial display to provider and protector. The female rarely leaves the nest, relying entirely on you to bring food while she maintains the precise temperature and humidity conditions necessary for successful development. Your hunting pressure intensifies beyond anything you've experienced before. You're not just feeding yourself anymore, you're supporting two adults and the developing chick inside the egg. The hunting schedule becomes relentless. You must catch enough prey to maintain your own energy levels while also providing regular meals for your mate. She's particular about food quality, refusing anything that isn't absolutely fresh. Insects that you might have eaten yourself in previous years are now rejected if they show any signs of deterioration. The standards force you to hunt more frequently and over wider areas. Your territory, which seemed adequate during courtship, now feels cramped and inadequate. The best hunting spots are quickly depleted by your intensive foraging efforts. You're forced to expand your range significantly, venturing into marginal areas that you previously avoided. Some of these areas overlap with neighboring territories, creating potential conflicts with other Potoos who don't appreciate your intrusion. A particularly aggressive neighbor challenges your expanded hunting activities repeatedly. He's an older male with established territory boundaries that your desperation has forced you to violate. The confrontations are dangerous because you can't afford injuries that might compromise your ability to provide for your mate and developing offspring. You develop strategies for hunting in disputed areas that minimize direct contact while maximizing foraging efficiency. The female's dedication to incubation is absolute and admirable. She sits motionless on the egg for 23 hours each day, moving only for brief feeding sessions and essential bodily functions. Her camouflage during this period is extraordinary, even by Potoo standards. Visitors to the area, including experienced ornithologists, pass directly beneath the nest without detecting her presence. Weather becomes your enemy during the incubation period. Heavy rains make hunting difficult and dangerous, but your mate requires consistent nutrition to maintain her strength and body temperature. You learn to hunt during brief breaks in storms, snatching insects from their temporary shelters when they venture out between downpours. The technique is risky because wet conditions make flight more energy intensive and reduce your maneuverability. A severe storm system that lasts 4 days tests your limits completely. Flying becomes nearly impossible as wind and rain batter the forest. Insects disappear entirely, hiding in bark crevices and hollow logs where they're impossible to reach. Your mate hasn't eaten in 2 days, and her condition is deteriorating visibly. Desperation drives you to attempt ground level hunting, something you've never done successfully. The forest floor during heavy rain is a different world entirely. Water streams everywhere, carrying debris and creating temporary rivers where normally dry paths exist. The few insects present are seeking shelter rather than feeding, making them extremely difficult to locate. Your first attempts are disasters, resulting in nothing but exhaustion and frustration. Success finally comes when you discover a fallen log that's sheltering dozens of beetles from the storm. The insects are sluggish from cold and moisture, making them relatively easy to catch once you locate their hiding place. You spend hours methodically extracting beetles from bark crevices, accumulating enough prey to feed both yourself and your mate. The meal arrives just in time. Another day without food might have forced her to abandon the nest. The final week of incubation brings new anxieties as you wait for signs of hatching. Your mate becomes increasingly restless, shifting position frequently and making soft vocalizations that you've never heard before. She seems to be responding to sounds from inside the egg that you can't detect. The waiting is excruciating because there's nothing you can do except continue providing food and maintaining vigilance against potential threats. Hatching finally begins with tiny cracks appearing in the eggshell. The process takes nearly 2 days as your offspring works to break free from its calcium prison. You watch from a nearby perch, ready to defend against any predators that might be attracted by the sounds of struggle. The female continues sitting, using her body heat and weight to assist the chick's emergence efforts. When your offspring finally breaks free, you're amazed by how small and helpless it appears. The chick is barely larger than your thumb, covered in sparse gray hose and down, with enormous closed eyes and a disproportionately large head. It can't regulate its own body temperature, coordinate its movements, or even lift its head consistently. Your mate immediately begins brooding the chick, using her body to maintain the precise temperature conditions necessary for its survival. Your hunting pressure doubles overnight, as you now support 3 individuals instead of 2. The chick requires frequent feeding of pre-digested insects delivered directly into its mouth. Your mate needs extra nutrition to recover from the energy drain of egg production and incubation. Your own energy needs to remain constant despite the increased workload. The mathematics of the situation are daunting. Feeding the chick requires developing entirely new hunting strategies focused on small, soft-bodied insects that can be easily digested. The beetles and large moths that sustained you during incubation are too tough and difficult for the chick to process. Instead, you target caterpillars, aphids, small flies, and newly molted insects with tender exoskeletons. The chick's feeding schedule is relentless. It requires food every 2 hours throughout the night, with each feeding consisting of multiple insects. You spend the entire darkness period hunting, returning to the nest repeatedly with mouthfuls of carefully selected prey. Dawn brings only brief rest before the cycle begins again the following evening. Your mate gradually resumes limited hunting activities as the chick grows stronger and requires less constant brooding. Her contributions are essential because your solo efforts weren't quite meeting the family's nutritional needs. Having 2 hunters dramatically improves the chick's growth rate and reduces the risk of starvation during periods of poor hunting conditions. The chick's development is remarkably rapid during its first month of life. Its eyes open after 2 weeks, revealing enormous pupils that seem to occupy most of its head. Feathers begin replacing the sparse down, initially appearing as tiny pin-like structures that gradually unfurl into proper plumage. Its coordination improves daily, progressing from helpless flopping to controlled head movements and eventually basic locomotion. Your offspring's first attempts at camouflage are instinctive, but clumsy. When threatened, it stretches its neck upward and freezes in place, just as you do. However, its proportions are wrong and its positioning is imprecise. The camouflage improves rapidly through practice and observation of your techniques. Within a month, the chick can achieve reasonably effective concealment when properly positioned. Teaching camouflage requires patience and repetition. You demonstrate proper posturing by example, showing how to align the body with bark patterns and maintain absolute stillness for extended periods. The chick's attention span is limited initially, but its learning capacity is impressive. Mistakes that could prove fatal in the wild are corrected quickly through repeated practice sessions. The nest location becomes increasingly cramped as your offspring grows. What seemed adequately sized for an egg and small chick becomes crowded when occupied by a rapidly developing juvenile. The young bird's movements risk exposing the family's location to predators or accidentally displacing it from the protective cavity. Plans for relocation become necessary before the chick becomes too large for safe transport. Your mate scouts alternative nest sites while you maintain hunting duties and chick supervision. Finding suitable locations proves challenging because the requirements have changed significantly. The new site must accommodate a larger, more active bird while still providing adequate concealment and protection. Several promising locations are rejected due to structural problems or excessive predator activity. The relocation process is nerve-wracking because it requires exposing the vulnerable chick to open forest conditions. You and your mate coordinate the move carefully, with one parent carrying the offspring while the other provides escort and protection. The chick cooperates surprisingly well, remaining motionless during transport, despite the unfamiliar experience of flight. The new nest site is a natural platform formed by the intersection of several large branches concealed by dense epiphytic vegetation. The location provides better space and improved escape routes while maintaining excellent camouflage potential. Your offspring adapts quickly to the new environment, exploring its expanded territory with cautious curiosity. Hunting instruction begins as your chick develops the physical capabilities necessary for independent feeding. Initial lessons focus on prey recognition and basic stalking techniques rather than actual capture attempts. You demonstrate how to identify suitable targets, approach without detection, and position for optimal strike angles. The young bird's enthusiasm often exceeds its capability, resulting in premature attacks that alert prey to danger. Your offspring's first successful hunt is a small caterpillar that was moving slowly across a nearby branch. The attack lacks finesse and nearly fails when the caterpillar attempts to escape, but determination and luck result in capture. The experience provides enormous confidence and motivates intensive practice of hunting techniques. Development of flight capabilities opens new possibilities for hunting instruction and territory exploration. Your chick's initial flights are awkward and uncontrolled, consisting mainly of short glides between branches rather than true powered flight. Coordination improves rapidly through practice, progressing to controlled flights within a few weeks of the first attempts. Flying lessons are conducted during daylight hours when visibility is better and predator activity is reduced. You guide your offspring through increasingly complex flight patterns, teaching navigation between obstacles and emergency landing procedures. The young bird's natural agility becomes apparent as it masters aerial maneuvers that seemed impossible just days earlier. Territory familiarization becomes a major focus as your chick develops independence. You conduct guided tours of hunting areas, escape routes, predator territories, and seasonal resource locations. This information transfer is crucial for survival because the young bird will eventually need to establish its own territory and hunting patterns. Your offspring shows particular interest in the stream hunting techniques you developed years earlier. The combination of fishing and terrestrial hunting appeals to its curious nature and provides backup food sources during periods when insect prey is scarce. Teaching these techniques requires multiple visits to the ravine system and careful supervision during the chick's initial attempts. The first serious predator encounter tests your offspring's camouflage training under genuine threat conditions. A Tara appears in the territory during early evening, systematically searching trees for potential prey. Your family freezes in place, maintaining perfect stillness while the predator investigates the area around your nest tree. Your chick's camouflage performance is adequate, but not perfect. Minor positioning errors and occasional muscle tremors create subtle movement that could attract attention from an observant predator. The Tara passes close enough to detect these flaws, but is distracted by easier prey before focusing on your family's location. The near miss provides valuable learning experience without catastrophic consequences. Training intensity increases following the predator encounter. Your offspring practices camouflage techniques for hours each day, working to eliminate the small errors that nearly resulted in detection. The dedication is impressive and necessary because future encounters might not end as fortunately. Territorial boundaries become important educational topics as your chick approaches the age when it will need to establish independent hunting areas. You explain the complex social dynamics that govern territory establishment, maintenance, and defense. The lessons include practical demonstrations of threat displays, conflict resolution, and strategic retreat when confronted by superior opponents. Your offspring's growing size and capability create new challenges for family dynamics. The young bird requires less constant supervision, but more resources to maintain its rapid growth rate. Competition for food becomes noticeable as your chick's hunting skills improve, but haven't yet reached full efficiency. Managing these changing dynamics requires constant adjustment of hunting schedules and territory utilization. The seasonal transition toward dry conditions creates additional pressure on family resources. Insect abundance decreases significantly, forcing more intensive hunting efforts to maintain adequate nutrition for 3 birds. Your offspring's incomplete hunting skills mean it can't yet contribute enough prey to offset its consumption, creating a net drain on family resources. Your mate begins spending more time away from the family unit, gradually reducing her parental investment as the chick approaches independence. This transition is natural and necessary, but it increases your workload significantly. You must provide more of the chick's nutritional needs while simultaneously maintaining your own condition and territorial defense. The young bird's first attempts at independent hunting become more frequent and ambitious. Success rates remain low, but determination and persistence are encouraging signs of developing competence. Each failed attempt provides learning opportunities that gradually improve technique and success probability. Your offspring's vocalizations develop complexity as it approaches maturity. The simple begging calls of early development give way to more sophisticated sounds that will eventually become territorial advertisements and communication tools. Teaching proper vocal technique requires extensive practice sessions and correction of errors that could send wrong messages to other forest inhabitants. Social interactions with other Potoos become important learning experiences as your chick encounters neighboring birds during territory patrols. These meetings provide practical education about threat assessment, conflict avoidance, and appropriate responses to different types of social situations. Your guidance helps interpret these encounters and develop appropriate behavioral responses. The approaching end of your parental responsibilities brings mixed emotions. Pride in your offspring's development combines with reluctance to end the intense bonding experience of raising young. However, the biological imperatives that drive family formation also dictate its eventual dissolution as the young bird prepares for independence. Your chick's final weeks under parental care focus on advanced hunting techniques and survival strategies that couldn't be taught earlier due to physical limitations. These lessons include specialized prey capture methods, emergency feeding strategies, and crisis management techniques that could prove crucial during difficult periods ahead. Territory selection becomes a practical concern as your offspring approaches the size and capability necessary for independent survival. You guide exploration of marginal areas beyond your established territory, where a young bird might successfully establish initial hunting grounds without immediate conflict with established adults. The forest that seemed so vast during your own youth now appears crowded and competitive when viewed from a parent's perspective. Finding adequate space for your offspring's territory requires extensive searching and careful evaluation of existing territorial boundaries. The complexity of forest social dynamics becomes apparent as you map the intricate network of established territories and identify potential gaps. Your young bird's first serious territorial display occurs when another juvenile appears in an area you've been exploring together. The encounter is brief and relatively mild, but it demonstrates that your offspring is developing the confidence and capability necessary for territorial establishment and defense. The display techniques are crude compared to your own polished performances, but the basic elements are present and properly executed. Your chick stretches its neck impressively, opens its mouth to reveal the cavernous interior, and maintains steady eye contact until the intruder withdraws. The success provides enormous confidence and validates months of training and preparation. Your parental role gradually transitions from active instruction to passive supervision as your offspring demonstrates increasing competence and independence. The young bird still returns to the family territory for roosting and occasional feeding, but these visits become less frequent as its own hunting skills improve. The final separation approaches as your chick's territorial instincts strengthen and conflicts with your own territorial behavior become more frequent. What began as mild competition for perches and hunting areas escalates into genuine territorial disputes that signal the end of the family relationship. Your offspring's departure from the family territory is gradual rather than sudden, occurring over several weeks as the young bird establishes independence while maintaining occasional contact. The transition allows for final lessons and emergency support while encouraging self-reliance and territorial establishment. The empty nest feels strange and quiet after months of intensive parental activity. Your mate has already begun preparing for the next breeding season, evaluating nest sites and territorial improvements that might attract future mates or support additional reproductive attempts. The cycle prepares to begin again, but with the accumulated wisdom and experience of successful parenthood informing future efforts. Your first breeding experience taught invaluable lessons about resource management, territorial defense, and the enormous energy requirements of successful reproduction. These insights will influence all future breeding attempts and territorial decisions, helping optimize reproductive success while managing the significant risks and investments involved. The forest feels different now that you've successfully raised offspring to independence. Your understanding of territorial dynamics, predator threats, and resource management has deepened significantly through the intense experience of protecting and providing for vulnerable young. The knowledge makes you a more effective competitor and a more attractive potential mate for future breeding opportunities. Your territorial boundaries require reassessment following your offspring's departure and the intensive resource exploitation of the breeding season. Some areas have been hunted so intensively that prey populations need time to recover. Other areas proved more productive than expected and deserve increased attention during future hunting campaigns. The seasonal cycle continues its relentless progression, bringing new challenges and opportunities that must be evaluated through the lens of your expanded experience and changed priorities. Your success as a parent has established your credentials as a high-quality mate, potentially attracting better partners and improving future reproductive opportunities. The forest ecosystem that has been your entire world continues evolving around you, presenting new challenges and revealing hidden complexities that influence every aspect of your survival and reproductive success. Your growing mastery of this environment positions you for continued success, but the ever-changing nature of forest life ensures that complacency could prove fatal. Your 6th year begins with the confidence and experience of successful reproduction, but also with the sobering knowledge of how much energy and risk successful breeding requires. The forest continues testing your abilities with seasonal variations, territorial challenges, and the constant pressure of finding adequate resources to support your increasingly sophisticated lifestyle and territorial requirements. The challenges of your 6th year intensify as you navigate the complex social dynamics of an experienced adult Potoo. Your successful breeding attempt has marked you as a proven territory holder, which attracts both potential mates and aggressive competitors who want to claim your valuable hunting grounds. The forest politics become more intricate as you're no longer just another young bird trying to survive. You're now part of the established hierarchy that controls the best resources. Your territory requires constant vigilance as pressure mounts from multiple directions. Younger birds probe your boundaries, testing whether your defenses have weakened after the exhausting breeding season. Established neighbors reassess their own territorial limits, looking for opportunities to expand into areas you might not be defending as aggressively. Even your former mate evaluates whether your territory still meets her standards for future breeding attempts. The most serious challenge comes from an older male who lost his own territory to a stronger competitor. He's desperate and dangerous, with nothing left to lose. His attacks on your boundaries are relentless and increasingly aggressive, forcing you to spend enormous amounts of energy on territorial defense when you should be focusing on hunting and recovery from the previous breeding season. The confrontations escalate over several weeks, with each encounter becoming more violent than the last. Your opponent's desperation makes him unpredictable and willing to take risks that a secure territorial male would never attempt. He launches surprise attacks during daylight hours when you're trying to rest, forces fights in areas where predators might be attracted by the commotion, and even attempts to destroy potential nest sites to reduce your territory's breeding value. Your response must be measured but decisive. Overreacting could exhaust your energy reserves and leave you vulnerable to other threats. Underreacting could signal weakness and encourage additional challenges from other competitors. You develop a strategy of selective escalation, responding to minor intrusions with threat displays while meeting serious challenges with overwhelming force. The decisive battle occurs during a particularly aggressive incursion when your opponent actually enters your core territory and begins hunting in your most productive areas. This level of violation cannot be tolerated without completely undermining your territorial status. You launch a full-scale attack that catches him off guard, using your superior knowledge of the terrain to force the fight into areas where you have tactical advantages. The combat is brutal and exhausting, lasting over 2 hours, as both birds inflict and receive significant injuries. Your opponent's desperation gives him strength, but your familiarity with the battleground and superior physical condition eventually prevail. The fight ends when you pin him against a tree trunk and deliver a series of strikes that leave him unable to continue. He retreats from your territory and doesn't return. Victory comes at a significant cost. Your injuries require weeks to heal properly, during which your hunting efficiency is severely compromised. Some wounds become infected, causing fever and weakness that make you vulnerable to other predators. You're forced to rely on cached food sources and reduce your activity levels until your body recovers from the ordeal. The territorial victory establishes your reputation as a formidable defender, which reduces challenges from other competitors, but also attracts attention from potential mates, evaluating breeding opportunities. Your demonstrated ability to maintain territory under pressure makes you a more attractive partner for females seeking secure nesting sites and reliable resource access. Your hunting techniques continue evolving as you adapt to changing conditions and expanding experience. The stream fishing methods you developed earlier prove increasingly valuable during dry seasons when terrestrial prey becomes scarce. You've perfected techniques for catching different fish species based on their specific behaviors and habitat preferences. Small cichlids that gather in shallow pools during breeding season become a specialty. These fish are predictable in their movements and relatively easy to catch once you understand their territorial behaviors. You learn to position yourself at strategic locations where breeding pairs establish nests, then strike when the fish are distracted by courtship activities or nest defense. Larger characins require different techniques because they're faster and more alert to aerial threats. Your success with these fish comes from understanding their feeding patterns and timing your attacks to coincide with their most vulnerable moments. Early morning hours when the fish are sluggish from cold water temperatures provide the best opportunities for successful strikes. The fishing expeditions also expose you to new predator risks that don't exist in the forest canopy. Caimans lurk in deeper pools, their eyes and nostrils barely visible above the water surface. These reptiles are patient ambush predators, capable of explosive strikes that could easily kill an unwary bird. You learn to recognize their presence through subtle signs like unusual water movements or the absence of normal aquatic prey. Your first caiman encounter occurs during a particularly productive fishing session when a large caracal leads you closer to deep water than usual. The fish's erratic behavior should have warned you that something was wrong, but your focus on the potential meal overrode your caution. The caiman's attack comes without warning, massive jaws snapping shut inches from your feet as you barely manage to launch into the air. The near miss teaches you valuable lessons about situational awareness and risk assessment. Fishing productivity must be balanced against predation risks, and some opportunities aren't worth the potential consequences. You develop new protocols for stream hunting that include careful predator assessment before entering vulnerable positions. Your territory management becomes more sophisticated as you gain experience with seasonal variations and long term resource dynamics. Certain hunting areas that seemed consistently productive during your early years show signs of depletion from intensive exploitation. You implement rotation systems that allow prey populations to recover while maintaining adequate food supplies from alternative locations. The complexity of territory management becomes apparent as you track the interconnected relationships between different prey species, predator populations, and seasonal resource availability. Changes in one area cascade through the entire system, affecting hunting success in seemingly unrelated locations. Understanding these connections allows you to predict and adapt to changing conditions more effectively. Weather patterns that once seemed random and unpredictable reveal underlying cycles that influence every aspect of forest life. Dry seasons vary in intensity and duration based on larger climatic patterns that extend far beyond your immediate territory. Understanding these variations helps you prepare for difficult periods and take advantage of exceptional conditions when they occur. Your seventh year brings the return of breeding season with new confidence and experience from your previous success. Your territory has recovered from the intensive exploitation of your first breeding attempt and now supports even richer prey populations. The improved resource base makes you an even more attractive partner for discriminating females evaluating potential mates. The courtship process is more efficient this time because you understand what females are looking for and how to demonstrate your capabilities most effectively. Your displays are more polished, your territory presentation is more strategic, and your vocal performances are more sophisticated. The experience shows in every aspect of your courtship behavior. Multiple females show interest in your territory this breeding season, creating the unprecedented situation of having choices rather than simply hoping for acceptance. This reversal of roles allows you to be more selective about potential mates, evaluating their genetic quality, experience, and compatibility with your territorial resources. The female you eventually choose is older and more experienced than your previous mate, with a track record of successful breeding attempts in other territories. Her standards are even higher than those of younger females, but her experience and proven fertility make the challenging courtship process worthwhile. The breeding attempt proceeds more smoothly than your first experience because both partners understand their roles and responsibilities. Your mate is more efficient at nest site selection and preparation, while your hunting strategies are better adapted to the intensive demands of supporting a breeding pair and developing offspring. The egg laying and incubation period benefit from your accumulated knowledge of optimal hunting schedules and resource management. You've identified the most productive hunting areas for different weather conditions and prey availability scenarios, allowing you to maintain consistent food supplies even during challenging periods. Your hunting efficiency during the breeding season is significantly improved compared to your first attempt. You know which prey species provide the best nutrition for incubating females, where to find suitable food during different weather conditions, and how to minimize energy expenditure while maximizing foraging success. The chick that hatches from this second breeding attempt develops more rapidly than your first offspring, benefiting from better nutrition and more experienced parental care. Your mate's superior brooding techniques and your improved hunting success create optimal conditions for rapid growth and development. Teaching techniques refined during your first breeding experience prove more effective with your second offspring. Your instruction methods are more systematic, your demonstrations are clearer, and your assessment of the chick's progress is more accurate. The young bird's skill development proceeds ahead of schedule compared to your first breeding attempt. The second chick's independence comes earlier and more smoothly than your first offspring's transition to self sufficiency. The combination of better initial training, superior physical development, and more favorable environmental conditions allows for a less stressful separation process. Your success with 2 breeding attempts establishes your reputation as one of the forest's most capable territorial males. This status brings both advantages and additional challenges as your territory becomes increasingly attractive to competitors and potential mates, while also requiring more intensive defense efforts. The forest continues evolving around you as climate patterns shift and human activities increasingly impact the ecosystem. New roads fragment traditional territories. Agricultural expansion eliminates some habitat areas, and changing weather patterns alter the timing and intensity of seasonal cycles that govern prey availability. Adaptation to these changing conditions requires constant learning and behavioral flexibility. Traditional hunting areas might become inaccessible or unproductive, forcing exploration of new territories and development of alternative resource strategies. The ability to adapt quickly to changing conditions becomes increasingly crucial for long-term survival. Your 8th year begins with the forest showing signs of stress from multiple environmental pressures. Some traditional prey species are becoming scarcer, while others appear in unusual abundance. The familiar patterns that guided your hunting strategies for years are shifting in unpredictable ways that require constant adaptation. Climate variations create new challenges and opportunities that test your accumulated experience and adaptability. Extended dry seasons push prey concentrations into different areas, while unusually intense rainy periods flood traditional hunting grounds and force temporary relocations to higher elevations. Human activities continue expanding into forest areas, creating edge effects that alter prey distributions and predator behaviors. Some changes are beneficial, as agricultural areas attract new insect species that supplement natural prey populations. Others are problematic, as increased human presence brings new threats and disrupts established territorial boundaries. Road construction through your territory forces a major adjustment to your established patrol routes and hunting patterns. The cleared corridor eliminates several productive hunting areas while creating new edge habitats that attract different prey species. Adapting to these changes requires extensive exploration and experimentation with modified hunting techniques. The road also brings increased predator pressure as domestic animals and human-associated species penetrate deeper into forest areas. Feral cats, dogs, and opportunistic birds follow the road corridor, creating new competitive pressures and potential threats that didn't exist in undisturbed forest conditions. Your territorial boundaries require complete reassessment following the habitat fragmentation caused by road construction. Some areas that were previously marginal become more valuable due to their isolation from human disturbance. Others that were highly productive become less desirable due to increased competition and predation pressure. The adaptation process reveals hidden strengths in your behavioral flexibility and problem-solving abilities. Techniques that worked perfectly in undisturbed forest prove inadequate in modified habitats, forcing rapid development of new approaches to hunting, territorial defense, and predator avoidance. Agricultural areas adjacent to your territory create seasonal opportunities that didn't exist in purely natural habitat. Flowering crops attract massive insect concentrations that provide exceptional hunting opportunities during specific periods. However, these resources also attract competing predators and create exposure risks that must be carefully managed. Your ninth year brings the challenge of maintaining territorial control while adapting to accelerating environmental changes. The forest ecosystem that has been your entire world continues evolving in unpredictable directions that test every aspect of your survival skills and behavioral adaptability. Competition for remaining high quality habitat intensifies as environmental pressures eliminate marginal areas and concentrate surviving wildlife into smaller spaces. Your established territory becomes even more valuable, but also more difficult to defend against increasingly desperate competitors. The breeding season arrives with new complexities as potential mates evaluate territories based on changing criteria that reflect the altered environmental conditions. Females now prioritize different habitat features and resource availability patterns that didn't matter in previous years when conditions were more stable. Your courtship displays must adapt to demonstrate competence in the new environmental reality, rather than simply showcasing traditional territorial qualities. Hunting demonstrations focus on versatility and adaptability rather than efficiency in familiar prey capture techniques. The female you attract this breeding season is younger but more adaptable than previous mates, with experience in modified habitats that makes her better suited to current environmental conditions. Her flexibility complements your accumulated experience, creating a partnership better adapted to changing circumstances. The breeding attempt proceeds under more challenging conditions than previous years due to increased predator pressure and altered prey availability patterns. Your hunting success requires greater effort and covers wider areas as traditional productive sites become less reliable. Your third offspring develops under more stressful conditions, but also benefits from your accumulated experience in adapting to environmental change. The chick's training includes techniques for surviving in modified habitats that weren't necessary for previous offspring raised in more stable conditions. The young bird's independence occurs in a forest that's significantly different from the one where you hatched years earlier. Its survival will depend on adaptability and flexibility rather than mastery of traditional techniques that may no longer be sufficient for success in changing conditions. Your 10th year arrives with the sobering realization that the forest of your youth no longer exists. Environmental changes have created a new ecosystem that requires different strategies and priorities for successful survival and reproduction. The accumulated wisdom of your years provides advantages in adapting to changing conditions, but also creates challenges, as traditional knowledge becomes less relevant to current realities. Balancing experience with adaptability becomes crucial for continued success in an evolving environment. Your legacy extends beyond your own survival to include the genetic and behavioral contributions of your offspring and their descendants. The skills and adaptations you've developed in response to environmental change will influence future generations' ability to survive in whatever conditions the forest's evolution produces. The forest continues its transformations around you, presenting new challenges that will test your accumulated wisdom and adaptability for whatever years remain ahead. Your 10th year marks a turning point that you don't fully understand yet. The forest feels smaller somehow, not because your territory has shrunk, but because you've mapped every branch, every hollow, every hunting ground within miles of your birth tree. What once seemed like an endless wilderness now feels familiar, almost predictable. You know which trees will lose their bark during the next storm, where the best beetles hide during dry spells, and exactly how the light filters through the canopy at different times of night. But familiarity breeds a different kind of danger. You've become so comfortable in your routines that you almost miss the signs of something new moving through your territory. It's not another Potoo or a familiar predator. It's something you've never encountered before. The scent is wrong, the movement patterns are unfamiliar, and the sounds it makes don't match anything in your extensive catalog of forest inhabitants. The creature appears during your evening hunt, moving through the middle canopy with surprising stealth for something so large. It's about the size of a small monkey, but moves differently, with deliberate precision rather than the chaotic swinging motion of primates. Its fur is dark and dense, and its eyes reflect light in a way that suggests excellent night vision. Most concerning, it seems to be following a scent trail that leads directly toward your favorite roosting spot. You freeze immediately, every instinct screaming danger. This animal's behavior suggests intelligence and purpose rather than random foraging. It pauses frequently to test the air, adjusting its route based on scent information you can't detect. When it stops directly below your perch and looks up, you realize with cold certainty that it's tracking you specifically. The standoff lasts for what feels like hours but is probably only minutes. The creature studies your position with unnerving intensity, its head tilting from side to side as it evaluates what it's seeing. Your camouflage is perfect. You know this because you've fooled more dangerous predators with the same technique. But this animal seems to be looking for something beyond simple visual identification. Eventually, it moves on, but the encounter leaves you deeply unsettled. Predators you understand, competitors you can handle, but this was something else entirely. The animal's behavior suggested a level of cognitive assessment that goes beyond instinctual hunting patterns. It was thinking about you in ways that make your usual defensive strategies feel inadequate. Your hunting patterns shift dramatically following the encounter. Routes that you've used successfully for years now feel exposed and predictable. You vary your timing, change your perches more frequently, and spend extra time scanning for unusual movements or sounds. The paranoia is exhausting, but the alternative, being caught off guard by an intelligent predator, is unthinkable. The mystery deepens when you discover evidence of the creature's activities in other parts of your territory. Scratch marks on tree bark that don't match any known species, disturbed leaf litter in patterns that suggest systematic searching, and most troubling, the complete absence of small mammals from areas where they were previously abundant. Whatever this animal is, it's having a significant impact on the local ecosystem. Your mate notices your increased vigilance and altered behavior patterns. She's preparing for another breeding season, evaluating your territory's suitability for raising offspring, and your obvious stress responses are affecting her assessment. Nervous, distracted males don't make reliable partners for the demanding process of reproduction and chick rearing. The pressure to appear calm and confident while maintaining heightened security measures creates an exhausting balancing act. You must demonstrate territorial control and hunting competence while secretly adapting to an unknown threat that could strike at any moment. The psychological strain is unlike anything you've experienced in your years of forest survival. Relief comes from an unexpected source when you finally observe the mysterious creature interacting with known forest inhabitants. It's a kinkajou, a nocturnal mammal that's been expanding its range due to changing climate conditions. Your forest is apparently at the edge of its traditional habitat, explaining why you've never encountered one before despite years of territory occupancy. The kinkajou's intelligence and adaptability make it a formidable competitor for some of the same resources you depend on. Its omnivorous diet includes insects, small vertebrates, and fruits that overlap significantly with your own food sources. More concerning, its arboreal lifestyle and excellent climbing abilities give it access to hunting areas you previously considered exclusively yours. Coexistence requires negotiating an entirely new set of territorial dynamics with a species that doesn't follow the established rules of forest social structure. Unlike other mammals that remain primarily ground based or other birds that maintain predictable territories, the kinkajou moves through three-dimensional space with patterns that intersect your domain in complex ways. Your first direct confrontation occurs when you discover the kinkajou feeding on a cache of beetles you've been saving for lean times. The mammal's presence at your storage site is a clear territorial violation that demands response, but your usual threat displays prove completely ineffective. The kinkajou simply ignores your posturing, continuing to feed as if you don't exist. Physical confrontation is risky because the kinkajou's size and strength advantages are significant. Its powerful claws and teeth could inflict serious injuries, and its intelligence suggests it might use tactical approaches that your anti-predator strategies aren't designed to counter. You need to establish boundaries without triggering a fight you might not win. The solution emerges through a series of carefully escalated encounters that test both animals' limits and preferences. You discover that the kinkajou avoids areas where you've recently killed prey, apparently disturbed by the scent of death and potential danger. This gives you a tool for influencing its movement patterns without direct confrontation. By strategically placing prey, remains, and scent markers, you create invisible boundaries that guide the kinkajou away from your most important resources while allowing it to utilize marginal areas of your territory. The arrangement isn't perfect, but it reduces direct competition while avoiding the risks and energy costs of ongoing conflict. Your 11th year brings an acceleration of changes that make adaptation increasingly challenging. The kinkajou is just one of several new species appearing in your territory as shifting climate patterns alter traditional range boundaries. Each new arrival requires assessment, negotiation, and adaptation of your established survival strategies. A small population of poison dart frogs establishes breeding colonies in several of the temporary pools you use for hunting and drinking. These amphibians represent both opportunity and danger. Their bright colors advertise toxicity that makes them unsuitable as prey, but their presence attracts insects that could supplement your diet. Learning to exploit the benefits while avoiding the risks requires careful observation and experimentation. The frogs' toxic skin secretions contaminate water sources, making direct consumption dangerous, but also creating opportunities for chemical defense. You discover that carefully controlled contact with contaminated water can transfer small amounts of toxins to your own plumage, potentially making you less attractive to some predators. The technique is risky and requires precise dosage control to avoid self-poisoning. New predator species also arrive as environmental changes create corridors for range expansion. A small population of ocelots establishes territories that overlap with your hunting grounds, bringing sophisticated design to counter. These cats hunt differently than they had predation pressure that your established anti-predator strategies were in familiar forest predators, using techniques that exploit vulnerabilities in your defensive behaviors. Your first ocelot encounter occurs during a routine hunting expedition when the cat's silent approach catches you completely off guard. Only luck and reflexes honed through years of predator avoidance save you from becoming a meal. The ocelot's strike misses by inches, and your panicked flight takes you to safety in the upper canopy where the cat can't follow. The near miss reveals critical gaps in your situational awareness and defensive strategies. Ocelots hunt differently than the familiar predators you've learned to avoid, using patience and stealth rather than speed and aggression. Their approach methods thus bypass many of the warning signs you depend on to detect incoming threats. Adaptation requires developing entirely new scanning patterns and behavioral protocols designed specifically for this unfamiliar predation pressure. You learn to recognize the subtle signs of ocelot presence, disturbed leaf litter, faint scent traces, and the nervous behavior of small mammals that serve as early warning systems. Your territory management becomes increasingly complex as you balance the needs of established species relationships with the demands of new arrivals. Traditional resource allocation strategies prove inadequate for the more diverse and competitive ecosystem that's developing around you. The breeding season arrives with additional complications, as potential mates must now evaluate territories based on their ability to support reproduction in a more complex and dangerous environment. Your territorial displays must demonstrate competence with new predators, competitors, and resource challenges that didn't exist in previous years. The female who eventually accepts your courtship is notably different from previous mates. She's younger, but more experienced with environmental change, having already attempted breeding in modified habitats that prepared her for current conditions. Her adaptability complements your accumulated experience in ways that create a stronger partnership for facing uncertain conditions. The breeding attempt proceeds under more stressful conditions, as increased predator diversity and competitor pressure require constant vigilance during the vulnerable incubation period. Your hunting efficiency must improve dramatically to compensate for the energy costs of enhanced territorial defense and the reduced productivity of familiar hunting areas. Your fourth offspring develops in the most challenging conditions you've yet experienced as a parent. The chick's training must include techniques for surviving with multiple new predator species, competing with unfamiliar species for resources, and adapting to rapidly changing environmental conditions that make traditional survival strategies less reliable. The young bird's development reflects the environmental pressures it will face throughout its life. Its camouflage patterns are more complex, its behavioral responses are more flexible, and its learning capacity exceeds that of previous offspring who developed under more stable conditions. Evolution is accelerating in response to environmental pressure. Your offspring's independence occurs in a forest that bears little resemblance to the one where you hatched over a decade ago. The skills that ensured your own survival may be inadequate for the challenges facing the next generation, making adaptability and learning capacity more important than accumulated knowledge. Your 12th year begins with the sobering realization that you're now an elder in a forest dominated by species and conditions that didn't exist during your youth. Your accumulated experience provides advantages in some situations, but creates disadvantages in others, where traditional approaches prove counterproductive. The forest continues evolving at an accelerating pace as climate change, habitat fragmentation, and species migrations create an ecosystem in constant flux. Your ability to adapt to these changes will determine whether your remaining years are spent in successful territorial control or gradual decline toward displacement by more adaptable competitors. Young Potoos entering the area show behavioral patterns and adaptations that reflect the new environmental reality. Their techniques for camouflage, hunting, and predator avoidance incorporate strategies that you've had to learn through trial and error. They represent the future of your species in a changed world. Your role in the forest hierarchy shifts as your accumulated knowledge becomes both more valuable and less relevant simultaneously. Younger birds seek your guidance for understanding traditional forest dynamics while developing their own solutions to challenges you've never faced. The complexity of modern forest survival requires balancing traditional wisdom with innovative adaptation in ways that challenge every assumption about successful Potoo behavior. Your continued survival depends on maintaining the flexibility to abandon strategies that no longer work while preserving knowledge that remains relevant. Your territory requires constant reassessment as environmental changes alter the value and vulnerability of different areas. Locations that provided security and resources for years may become liabilities, while previously marginal areas might develop into crucial refuges or hunting grounds. The psychological challenge of adapting to constant change while maintaining the confidence necessary for territorial defense and reproduction creates stress levels that test your emotional resilience. The forest that once felt like home now feels like a series of survival challenges that demand constant vigilance and adaptation. Your hunting techniques continue evolving as new prey species arrive while familiar ones become scarcer or alter their behaviors in response to changing conditions. The expertise developed over years of specialization must be constantly updated and expanded to maintain adequate nutrition in a shifting resource base. Competition for territory intensifies as environmental changes eliminate marginal habitat and concentrate surviving wildlife into smaller areas of suitable conditions. Your established territory becomes increasingly valuable, but also more difficult to defend against competitors who are equally desperate for secure resources. The breeding seasons become more challenging as potential mates evaluate territories based on their ability to support reproduction under increasingly unpredictable conditions. Traditional displays of territorial quality prove inadequate for demonstrating competence with novel challenges that have no historical precedent. Your legacy extends beyond your own survival to include the behavioral innovations and adaptations you've developed in response to environmental change. These techniques will influence how future generations of Potoos adapt to whatever conditions continue developing in the forest's ongoing evolution. The forest ecosystem continues its rapid transformation around you, presenting challenges that test every aspect of your accumulated wisdom while demanding innovations that push the boundaries of traditional Potoo behavior. Your survival in this changing world depends on maintaining the delicate balance between experience and adaptability that defines successful life in an evolving environment. Your 13th year arrives with the forest showing signs of stabilizing into new patterns that reflect the accumulated changes of recent years. The chaos of rapid environmental transformation is giving way to modified but predictable cycles that allow for more strategic long-term planning and adaptation. The species composition has largely settled into new equilibrium states that create opportunities for establishing stable relationships with novel neighbors and competitors. Your understanding of these new dynamics allows for more efficient resource utilization and reduced energy expenditure on constant crisis management. Your territorial control benefits from the accumulated knowledge of how different species interact with your hunting and nesting requirements. The complex negotiations required for coexistence with unfamiliar neighbors have evolved into routine management strategies that maintain access to essential resources while minimizing conflict. The forest that emerges from this period of intense change is different, but not necessarily inferior, to the one where you spent your youth. New opportunities balance the loss of familiar resources, and innovative hunting techniques compensate for the elimination of traditional prey sources. Your role as an experienced survivor in the modified ecosystem becomes increasingly important as younger birds seek guidance for navigating conditions that have no historical precedent. Your accumulated knowledge of adaptation strategies provides valuable insights that can't be learned through instinct alone. The breeding seasons in this modified environment require different approaches, but still offer opportunities for successful reproduction. Your partnership strategies have evolved to prioritize flexibility and adaptability over traditional displays of territorial stability and resource abundance. Your offspring born into this changed world show remarkable adaptations that reflect their genetic inheritance combined with environmental pressures that shaped their development. They represent the future of Potoo survival in whatever conditions continue developing in the years ahead. The forest continues its evolution around you, but at a pace that allows for thoughtful adaptation rather than desperate crisis management. Your survival in this environment depends on maintaining the balance between accumulated wisdom and innovative flexibility that has carried you through more than a decade of successful territorial control. Your legacy in this transformed forest includes not just your genetic contributions, but also the behavioral innovations and adaptation strategies you've developed through years of responding to environmental change. These techniques will influence how your species continues evolving in response to whatever challenges lie ahead in the ongoing transformation of your forest home. The years blur together now as your body begins to show the accumulated wear of more than a decade of forest survival. Your feathers, once perfectly modeled for camouflage, now show gaps and irregularities that make blending with bark textures more challenging. Your enormous eyes, that's still sharp and alert, require more effort to focus on distant movement. Your reflexes remain quick, but the explosive bursts of speed that once carried you away from danger now leave you exhausted and sore. Your 14th year brings the first serious injury that doesn't heal properly. During a territorial dispute with a younger male, a poorly timed strike leaves you with a damaged wing that never quite regains its full range of motion. The limitation is subtle. Most creatures would never notice, but it affects your hunting precision and escape maneuvers in ways that accumulate over time. Compensation becomes essential as your physical capabilities decline. You develop hunting techniques that rely more heavily on patience and positioning rather than quick strikes and rapid escapes. The energy-intensive aerial maneuvers of your younger years give way to more conservative approaches that minimize risk while maintaining adequate nutrition. Your territory requires strategic downsizing as defending large areas becomes increasingly exhausting. You focus your efforts on the most productive hunting grounds while allowing marginal areas to be claimed by competitors. This concentration of resources actually improves your efficiency in some ways, reducing travel time and energy expenditure between widely scattered feeding areas. The breeding seasons become more selective as you evaluate potential mates based on their ability to compensate for your declining physical capabilities. Younger, more energetic females who can take on larger shares of hunting and territorial defense become more attractive partners than those who expect traditional male dominance in all aspects of reproduction. Your hunting success rate begins to decline as prey animals become more adept at detecting the subtle signs of your presence that increased age makes more difficult to conceal. The perfect stillness that once made you invisible now requires conscious effort to maintain, and occasional muscle tremors betray your position to observant prey. Adaptation strategies focus on exploiting the accumulated knowledge of prey behavior patterns that younger hunters haven't yet learned. Your understanding of seasonal variations, weather influences, and microhabitat preferences allows you to position yourself more effectively, compensating for reduced physical capabilities through superior tactical positioning. The forest's continued evolution presents new challenges that test your ability to learn and adapt, despite the cognitive changes that accompany aging. Memory that once seemed perfect now occasionally fails during critical moments, forcing you to develop backup strategies and redundant planning approaches. Your role in forest social dynamics shifts as younger, more vigorous males assume dominance in territorial competitions, while you maintain influence through accumulated knowledge and strategic alliance formation. The hierarchies that once seemed fixed reveal their fluid nature as individual capabilities change over time. Competition with younger birds becomes increasingly difficult as they possess the physical advantages you once enjoyed, combined with innovations developed specifically for current environmental conditions. Your survival depends more heavily on avoiding direct confrontation while maintaining access to essential resources through timing and positioning strategies. Your hunting techniques continue evolving toward approaches that maximize success probability while minimizing energy expenditure and injury risk. The spectacular strikes and dangerous pursuits of your prime years give way to careful ambush techniques that rely on patience and precision rather than speed and agility. The psychological adjustment to declining capabilities proves as challenging as the physical limitations themselves. Your identity as a dominant territorial male gradually shifts toward survival-focused strategies that prioritize longevity over reproductive success and territorial expansion. Your 15th year arrives with the clear recognition that you've entered the final phase of your life cycle. The forest that has been your entire world for more than a decade and a half continues evolving around you, but your ability to adapt to new changes becomes increasingly limited by accumulated physical and cognitive constraints. The breeding season approaches with different priorities as you evaluate whether another reproductive attempt is worth the enormous energy costs and risks involved. The decision requires balancing potential genetic legacy benefits against the shortened lifespan that intensive breeding efforts might produce. Your territory management becomes more conservative as you focus on maintaining control over core areas rather than expanding or defending marginal locations. The streamlined approach reduces energy requirements while preserving access to the most critical resources needed for basic survival. Hunting strategies emphasize reliability over productivity as you develop techniques that guarantee modest but consistent food supplies rather than pursuing high-risk, high-reward opportunities that could result in injury or complete failure during critical periods. Your knowledge of the forest's seasonal patterns and long-term cycles becomes your greatest asset as younger competitors excel in physical capabilities while lacking the accumulated wisdom that guides efficient resource utilization and risk management decisions. The forest continues presenting challenges that test your adaptability, but your responses become more measured and conservative as you balance innovation against the increased consequences of failure that accompany advanced age and declining physical reserves. Your legacy in the forest extends beyond immediate offspring to include the behavioral techniques and adaptation strategies you've developed through years of environmental change. These innovations influence how other Potoos respond to similar challenges, creating ripple effects that extend far beyond your individual survival. The relationships with other forest inhabitants Evolve as your role shifts from dominant competitor to experienced survivor, whose presence provides stability and knowledge resources that benefit the broader ecosystem's adaptation to changing conditions. Your survival strategies increasingly focus on efficiency and sustainability rather than dominance and expansion, reflecting the reality that your remaining time requires different priorities than the territorial acquisition and reproductive success that drove your earlier years. The forest that has shaped your entire existence continues its own evolution around you, presenting new challenges and opportunities that you evaluate through the lens of accumulated experience, while acknowledging the limitations that advanced age imposes on your response options. Your 16th year begins with the sobering acknowledgement that each season might be your last. The forest feels simultaneously more familiar and more foreign than ever before. Familiar because you've experienced every variation of weather, predation pressure, and resource availability it can offer, yet foreign because the accumulated changes have created an ecosystem that bears little resemblance to the one where you hatched. Your hunting becomes increasingly ritualistic as you rely on techniques perfected over years of refinement. The experimental approaches of your youth have given way to reliable methods that provide consistent but modest returns. You know exactly where to find beetles during dry spells, which branches produce the best moth hunting during different moon phases, and how to position yourself for maximum efficiency with minimum energy expenditure. But reliability comes with vulnerability. Your predictable patterns make you easier to track for the few predators still capable of threatening an experienced adult Potoo. A particularly persistent margay has learned your routines well enough to set up ambushes along your regular patrol routes. The cat's patience matches your own, creating a dangerous game of anticipation and counter-anticipation that adds stress to every hunting expedition. Your response involves breaking patterns you've followed for years, abandoning productive hunting spots when they become too predictable, and developing alternative routes that sacrifice efficiency for security. The changes are exhausting and reduce your food intake at a time when you can least afford nutritional deficiencies. The margay's persistence eventually pays off during a particularly careless moment when fatigue overcomes caution. You're returning from a successful hunting session, stomach full and reflexes dulled by satisfaction when the attack comes. The cat's leap is perfectly timed and positioned, but your accumulated experience with predator encounters provides just enough warning to avoid a fatal strike. The escape costs you several tail feathers and a deep gash across your back that takes weeks to heal properly. More importantly, it demonstrates that even your extensive experience can't completely compensate for the declining reflexes and reduced stamina that make you increasingly vulnerable to patient, intelligent predators. Recovery from the injury forces a complete reevaluation of your survival strategies. The wounds become infected despite your efforts at self-care, causing fever and weakness that leave you unable to hunt effectively for several days. Your carefully managed energy reserves dwindle quickly, bringing you closer to starvation than you've been since your early juvenile years. The infection finally clears, but you're never quite the same. Your movements are more cautious, your hunting less ambitious, and your territory smaller than it's been in years. The forest continues its relentless cycle around you, indifferent to your struggle. Young Potoos arrive each season, eager and inexperienced, making the same mistakes you once made. Some survive to face the challenges you're facing now. Most don't. Your 17th year arrives quietly, without fanfare or recognition. The forest doesn't celebrate birthdays or mark anniversaries. It simply continues, as it always has, as it always will. You've become part of its rhythm now, no longer fighting the changes, but flowing with them. Your hunting is methodical, your movements deliberate, your camouflage still perfect despite everything. The final hunt comes on a night that feels like any other. You position yourself on a familiar branch, open your mouth wide, and wait for the moth that's been circling the same flowering vine for the past 3 nights. Your timing is perfect, your technique flawless. The moth flies straight into your beak, just as thousands have before. But as you swallow, something feels wrong. Your throat constricts, your breathing becomes labored, and your vision starts to blur. The moth was perfect, the technique was perfect, but your body has finally reached its limit. You've survived longer than most Potoos ever will, seen changes that would have killed less adaptable birds, and left a legacy that will influence your species for generations to come. You settle into your final camouflage position, becoming one last time the piece of dead wood you've pretended to be your entire life. The forest accepts you back, just as it accepted you when you first cracked through that white shell so many years ago. Life as a Potoo might be rough, but there's another animal out there that has it way worse.